What the hell? It's a goddamn cougar in the car.
Oh, there's a cougar,
by the way.
But yeah.
All right, welcome back. Episode 14, right? Yeah, episode 14. My dude's decked out in Ohio State again. Welcome back, Ben. Episode 2. You're getting there. You're gonna get that star eventually. But you're still definitely neglecting points for not having a name on the back of that jersey. But I mean, at least you have a jersey. At least you have a jersey. I can't say that. I don't really have a jersey. I used to have two. I had two Saints jerseys back in the day. I had Michael Thomas and Deuce McAllister. Don't ask me what happened to them because I have no idea. But yeah, I mean,
the first New Orleans Saints jersey I ever bought was a Reggie Bush jersey.
Really?
And that was when we went to the game in Carolina.
Dude, that's actually what I was just about to say. I always wanted a Reggie Bush jersey because me and Alex were just talking about him the other day. And shout out to Alex for not being here, you bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
Come on, man.
I'm
happy
just kidding.
birthday, right?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Oh yeah, that is right.
You.
I forgot. Happy birthday, Alex. Shout out to you. I'll be nice tonight. But that is something me and him were talking about is Reggie Bush. And we were like saying, is he the best college football player of all time? And I was saying he's in that realm at least. Like you have to have that conversation. Cause I remember I was a fan of USC just because of Reggie Bush. It was kind of crazy. But let's go ahead, and we have a lot of good news that's happened around the league. So we've had Lenny visiting the Pats. That's something that's going to be really interesting. Obviously, D-Hop signs with the Titans. So that's something that obviously in our last mock draft, you were saying, I'm going to draft D-Hop right here. But if it was a real life, I'm out. I quit.
I'm out. I quit. I done quit the league. Like he signed with the Titans. I'm out of here.
So like let's react to that real quick. I mean, I know obviously you drafted him in that league. So what do you think D-Hop's like fantasy outlook is for like when it comes to being with the Titans? You obviously don't have any other weapons in that wide receiver room. You have Ryan Tannehill, who's a capable quarterback. That's really a compliment to say the least. So
he's a manager.
Yeah. Do you think like D-Hop still has like at least top 10 to 15-ish? Upside with that team? I mean, they have to throw the ball to somebody, and he was on pace for 1,400 yards last year, so he's clearly not washed. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I would draft him as an RB2 for me. I definitely
wide receiver too.
Yeah, sorry, not RB2. Wide, because we're going into RBs here in our podcast. So yeah, wide receiver 2. I don't think I could take him as a wide receiver 1 right now. They do have Treylon Burks there, so when you say they don't have any weapons, you know, I think he's got room to grow. They still have Derrick Henry, so that offense there, I think is going to lean run heavy. So I definitely don't think that DeAndre is putting up RB. Oh my gosh, RB, wide receiver 1 stats this
Got
year.
your mind on those RBs.
Oh my God, like that's all I've been thinking about all day, like preparing for this.
So. Running back.
Well,
speaking of that, before we actually jump into the actual rankings, because I didn't mention that at the top of the episode, we are going over our top 10 running back rankings. And it is going to be redraft setting. We're not doing dynasty this episode. Shout out to all my redrafters. I know Alex hates it. That's probably the real reason he didn't want to do this episode. He always hates on redraft. I don't know why. He's a little bitch though. But I love you, Alex. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so I did want to talk a little bit about the state of the running back market, because obviously the last few days we've had a ton of people, Jonathan Taylor, I think it was Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, a lot of these guys coming out on Twitter and just talking about the state of the running back market, how they're so underpaid. Like there's been these memes I guess not really memes, but like these pictures going around Twitter saying that the average NFL running back makes less than the average kicker, which is absolutely insane to just think about, especially when you have other videos of like Nick Chubb going viral for bench pressing like 700 pounds and the bar looks like it's about to break, so like it's just, what do you think, like in terms of like, at least this is obviously a fantasy like podcast, but what is the state of the running backs, at least in your opinion? Are you still going to go like draft your running backs very highly? Because obviously you still have your guys, like we'll have Saquon, CMC, those guys, but the trend has really been to kind of fade them. So what about you? What?
Yeah, I think it depends on whether or not you're in a PPR league and whether or not you can grab one of those top, 3 or 4 running backs, right? That are, the Ecklers who's, catching 100 balls a year, CMC who's known for his
Yeah.
pass catching abilities. But honestly, I think you're going to start to see a lot of these running backs trend towards the Antonio Gibson point of view and trying to go out wide, right? That's where he's been really successful. He was successful in college there, and not so successful there in Washington, and wanting to move out wide there in that offense, and hopefully he can see some expanded success there. But if they're not going to pay running backs, or they're not going to be able to get the contracts that wide receivers and such are getting, I don't see anyone wanting to play running back anymore. Why take the beating for nothing, right? Like that is literally the position that gets beat up the most, right? And
other than
you're not getting paid for it. Yeah, well,
but
they're on the line is a little different, right? But
it is crazy
if you're catching the ball out of the backfield, or trying to run straight up the middle and getting blasted by a linebacker,
right?
You want to get paid for it.
Yeah, no, so it is crazy. But last thing that we'll say on this before we jump into actual rankings is, with all that going on, there has actually been this stat that's been thrown around on Twitter, at least, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. It'll be on our community page too as well. But it's like the last, I think, decade or so of Super Bowl contenders, I mean winners, that have been, or at least went and won to the Super Bowl. They literally had like no one at running, maybe not no one, but they had very late round talent slash like low paying guys at the running back position. So not very good for their argument, at least when like people like Austin Eckler are saying it's one of the most important positions in fantasy football. Clearly the stats say kind of otherwise, but I'm all obviously for guys getting their money. I do think the fact that they're getting, the average NFL running back gets paid less than kickers, it's ridiculous. Like that needs to change. Like something obviously needs to change about the position. But
so look at last year with Pacheco, right? Starting running back for the Chiefs, winning the Super Bowl.
And I saw a tweet. I don't remember, like it was kind of just breaking down his contract situation. I don't remember exactly who it was from, so I can't really shout them out. But it was really just basically saying, without taking too much time, he's never going to make any money. They're going to be able to contract, like franchise tag him, and then he's going to be due and he's going to be older, and no one's going to really want to pay a running back at that point. So like, that's why you also worry about some of these guys. Like at least me and Alex have gone back and forth, like Jonathan Taylor, Ramondre Stevenson, 2 guys that he has in one league that he's a little bit more of a fan on Stevenson, which Alex, if you're watching this, which you should be, you're going to love my running back rankings, at least compared to our bet. It's kind of funny how it came out, but those guys are on expiring contracts. So you don't really know what's going to happen. Obviously there's a lot of running backs in free agency right now. So it's really just, it's like you said, if you don't have those top guys, it's kind of turned into tight end. You're punting, maybe not punting, but like you're just kind of dart throws at this point. Like you never know. But let's go ahead and jump into the actual ranking. So I know we started off, we have difference at number 1. So who is your number 1 running back?
Yeah, my number 1, I went Austin Eckler. The guy led the league with 18 touchdowns last year, right? 13 on the ground and 5 in the air. This is the second year in a row that he's led the league in touchdowns. He's had 107 receptions last year on 127 targets. I think that's probably going to be consistent this year. I worry a little bit with his demeanor and his contract situation, right? Like we kind of just talked about. But I think he's on an incentive-based year, and he's going to go out there and try to prove himself that he's worthy. And only being, I think he's still 27 or something like that.
Yeah, he's 28.
28. Okay. So yeah, so I think he's getting up there in age, but I think the way he's been playing the past couple of years, being, the top running back in the league, scoring wise, right? Like it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
Especially, and I'll say that we're in a PPR league, right? That's what we're talking about ranking wise.
Correct.
So
Correct. Yeah. So no, I don't disagree. I think number one overall is where I mean, I don't disagree that he's obviously great. He is an incredible. He led like you said, led the league in touchdowns, or at least maybe not led the league in touchdowns, but he had double-digit touchdowns for the last 2 years. So he's an explosive playmaker and one of the best offenses in the NFL. But my number one is a much better explosive playmaker, in my opinion, at least. And I am being a little biased, but I do also want to say this is very conditional on where he ends up with his current situation. Now, some could say like you got to obviously take that into consideration, but even before his contract situation, I probably would have had him right here. But Saquon Barkley is my RB1, man. Like I said, this is very conditional on how his situation plays out, because he's refusing to sign his franchise tender right now. But I think, for me, at least, thinking about it from an athletic perspective, or an athlete perspective, I should say, that's probably going to piss him off that they're disrespecting him like this. To say that he's really, and I agree with them, he's really built that, they have really built that entire offense around him. He's made life for Daniel Jones so much easier, and they chose to pay him over Saquon Barkley. So, you have to live with that. And they gave him a pretty hefty contract. And in the quarterback market, that is, a pretty deservingly so contract. That's not anything crazy, I guess. But whenever you're looking at Saquon, he's only 24 years old. And he's, at least to me, him and Christian McCaffrey are in their own little tier by themselves, and then Austin Eckler is like a step outside of them. Those two guys are just kind of different athletically to me. He had over 1,600 yards in 2022 and 10 total touchdowns. So again, all this is just kind of a big if, because he could be Le'Veon Bell and just hold out and maybe miss the whole year, or not miss half the year. I don't even remember really how long he sat out, Le'Veon Bell. But I think if he does come back and he's there week one, he's going to be playing angry, and shit, he may have the best year of his career. So he was also RB2 last year. Wait, was he RB2? I should have wrote that down. Look it up for me real quick. But he was number 2 in actual breakaway runs when you're breaking that down from a stat perspective. So he's a home run hitter, and he's also one of the most elusive running backs in the NFL, ranking number 6 in evading tackles. So,
okay.
you did you have it up? I can bring it up real quick. I think I have the Sleeper app right here. So let's see.
Yeah, I don't have
Saquon,
that
yeah,
stat in
he
front of
was
me.
RB5 last year, not RB2.
There you go.
So yeah, I messed up my stats, but yeah, Saquon Barkley, he is my RB1. So I'm gonna go on to number 2, and then you'll say yours. Like I said, I kind of hinted at it already. CMC, him and Saquon are just in their own tier, So he has an injury history. He's lost some touches to Elijah Mitchell when he was healthy, but I wouldn't say it was anything that was cause for concern. But CMC is just one of the most explosive utility players, and I call him like a utility player because dude did everything with the 49ers last year. He caught passing touchdowns. He even threw a passing touchdown. He had 14 total touchdowns last year, so this guy can do everything. He had 1,100 plus rushing yards, 85 catches, 741 receiving yards. And he's the best pass catching back in the league, in my opinion, when you're talking about just pure pass catching ability, because the guy basically played slot wide receiver when he was with Carolina. And I think the more his career develops, or I guess ages is a better way to say that, he'll probably lean more on that as he gets older, because you're not going to lose your ability to catch the ball. You may lose that ability to get separation, but this guy was a great route runner as well, and he can run in a full route tree, really whatever you want him to. So, like I said, he was actually RB2 last year. Sorry, that's where I was getting my stacks messed up. So CMC RB2 in 2022, and I think he will probably finish right there, if not RB1 again. Because again, if Saquon misses time because of his contract situation, CMC will probably be my RB1, and Saquon, depending on how that plays, might even drop out the top 10. But who is your RB2?
Yeah, I'll disagree with you on whether CMC is the best pass catching back in the league. I do think that's Eckler.
Okay.
Not to downgrade his abilities, but I also have CMC as number two.
So we agree on that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where he's going to fall this year as well. He could potentially end up as the number one running back in the league, depending on how that offense fares under Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Coming back from injury, that's a little bit of my concern, but it's also a plus. I think that with Purdy's injury and him still trying to gain strength in that elbow, some of that short passing game is going to be pertinent to CMC's points going forward.
Yeah. How I look at it is just Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. That's CMC and Saquon Barkley, in my opinion. They're just in their own tier of their own. Like you said, no disrespect. Like you said, no disrespect to CMC, no disrespect to Eckler, but he is just not what those two guys are, in my opinion.
Yeah. I do think if Trey Lance ends up getting the start, which everyone said that Purdy is the number one guy there as long as he's healthy. But I don't think anyone's come out and said that, yes, he is the guy. He's ready to go week one. I worry a little bit with CMC if Trey Lance is the guy there for the first couple weeks. Only, if you're looking for, this is redraft, so you're looking for week to week to week to week, right? So if Trey Lance comes out there and balls out, and we know he's a little bit of a rushing quarterback, he could steal some of those goal line carries there. You also have Eli Mitchell, and I do worry a little bit about them trying to get Deebo Samuel involved a little bit more this year as well, which he wasn't as much last year.
So look, this is how I think about that, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this, so we can move on to number 3. But I think that's very simple response to me, honestly. When it comes to Trey Lance, I don't think he'll ever be their starting quarterback. I think that's Brock Purdy. I just think he's done. Why would you give the getting tongue twisted? Why would you give the offense back over to Trey Lance? It would just make no sense. When it comes to Deebo Samuel, I think he will get some, yes, but I don't think he will get that much because he literally has like contract clauses built in to where if he gets rushing usage, that he gets like big bonuses. So I'm not going to say they're going to hold that against him. Yeah, I'm not going to say they're going to. Well, I don't want to say that because obviously if it's in terms of them winning the game, of course.
Right.
But like that is something that is probably like, like, hey, let's not use him as much in the rushing game. He's a wide receiver. Let's figure out a ways to get, maybe it's bubble screens. Maybe it's just, getting him out and like doing an end around in the flats or something like that, or having him like motion out to the slot, whatever, doing what, like it's Kyle Shanahan. He's one of the most creative offensive minds. Can't talk today for some reason. In the NFL.
If we got the game in the bag, right, there's no need to throw those gimmick plays in there just to help someone get a bonus, right?
Correct. So but I mean sometimes I'm not gonna I also sometimes people do look at that. Like if he's close to a bonus, then yeah, they might give him that. But again, it's a big thing. I'm not really worried about that with CMC. He can do it all. He's one of the best running backs. So like I said, I want to move on to number 3 though, because I know you're gonna have a different number 3 than I am, but mine was Austin Eckler. So Austin Eckler came in my top 3. Like I said, no disrespect. Only thing I'm gonna say about him, the only reason he didn't really put into my top 2, my top 2 is because, like I said, I just look at those guys in a different tier. But Austin Eckler's been a top 5 running back 3 out of the last 4 seasons. So he has a very elite ceiling, and he has been as consistent as can be, and he is a key weapon in one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL with new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who I am very excited about as a Josh Herbert owner, and who actually just recently produced an RB8 season with Tony Pollard last year. So very excited to see what they will do together. And I think a lot of it also has to do with his morale, but he's a professional and I think he'll go out there and ball regardless. So let's see, who is your number 3 overall player?
Yeah, just to touch on that, I am excited for Eckler and Herbert as well with Kellen Moore as the OC there. I think that's going to be a step
Yeah,
up in
I
the
think it was
OC.
stupid for Dallas to let him go.
Yeah, one of the brilliant offensive minds in the game. So we'll see how things go. My number 3 ended up being Josh Jacobs. And
Wow.
this is taking contract worries out of the equation, right? Like he's in the same situation. Didn't sign an extension there in Las Vegas. So we'll see how things work out there. But if he's there week 1, ready to ball, I think he's in our league, he was the last running back to score over 300 points for the season. And that's, something to consider when you're talking about Josh Jacobs, CMC, and Eckler. There's a big drop off from number 3 down to number 4, with it being like 25 points or so, right? And when you're
Right.
thinking about that over a season, that's a lot of points to give up. That's
So
a game or two, right?
right. So one thing that I want to say, and then we're gonna have to get into a quick break real quick. But well, we have a little time, but we're gonna have to get a break in soon. But I do want to say that I don't even have Josh Jacobs in my top 10.
Wow.
I don't. I
Wow.
honestly I think last year was a fluke, and I think he's very good. I don't think he's great. I really don't. And I think what we've saw, or what we have seen, I should say, from the past before last year is more the norm. So I'm just not really a fan of Josh Jacobs. And also I just, maybe I've been burned too many times, because truthfully, I did draft him a lot in the very early years. And those RB15s, RB17s, that just really, it hurt me deep in the heart. Um, so who is your RB4? Or did you have anything else that you wanted to say before we move on?
Well, I mean, with Josh Jacobs, I think he's a true bell cow, right? And he's got a little bit of a receiving upside. I do worry about the quarterback play there, right? We don't know what's going on with Garoppolo, who their starter may end up being. But he ended up having 12 rushing touchdowns last year. He didn't have any receiving. So if he
Yeah.
has a little bit of an upside there, that couple touchdowns there could catch him up to CMC. There you go. Cheers, mate. But he had almost 1,700 rushing yards, right? And I think if you're suspect on your quarterback play there, they still have Devontae Adams, who's, obviously a wide receiver threat. But if you're suspect in the quarterback room, you're going to lean on your rushing, and the dude already had almost 1,700 yards last year. It's hard to dismiss that.
Yeah, true. So one thing, I'm pulling up Josh Jacobs' stats. Sorry, real quick. So this is one thing that I'll say. Before last year, like you said, he did have close to 1,700 yards, 1,653, and 12 touchdowns, averaging close to 5 yards a carry. Before that, his rookie year, he averaged 4.7 yards a carry. Last year, he averaged 4.8, so he was close to that again. He finished as RB21, only had 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns with almost no pass catching. Year after, he finished at RB8, much better season. Had a RB1 season for once. That was his first one. He had 12 touchdowns, only 1,000 yards and 3.9 yards per carry, and had 273 carries. So he got a lot more, and also a lot more pass catching, with 43 catches that year, but only 238 yards. So definitely it was like mostly just drop offs for a couple yards. So definitely not a very efficient season that year, which is what led to him having the contract issues. And then he had just an injury riddled season the following year, with only 872 yards, 9 touchdowns, and he did have more catches with 54, so he got up there. So what I'm really getting at is, I think this is a very good player. I don't think he's great. To me, he's a much better version of Latavius Murray, honestly. Like if you remember who Latavius Murray is. He was like the starting running back, had a Latavius Murray. But he had over 1,000 yards for a few seasons. Wasn't a very efficient runner and wasn't a great pass catcher. But I think he's a little bit better than that. But that's about it. I don't think he's worth that top 5 running back option, at least in my opinion. But let's go on. Before we go and have to get our break real quick. So 2 is your number 4.
Who was your number 3?
Austin
Did
Eckler.
I miss it? Oh,
Yeah,
Eckler. Okay.
that's why I
Yeah.
just went through it quick
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
you went through them
Yep.
already.
Yeah, I got you. So number 4, I think is one of the most underrated running backs in the league as far as drafting goes, and that's Nick Chubb.
Ooh, I like this one. I didn't have him
Yeah.
at 4, but I had him. I had him close to that. I'm not gonna spoil it, but tell me about Nick Chubb.
Yeah, so I looked at our league and on Sleeper, and he's the 11th running back off the board right now with the average draft pick of about 46. People were taking Ken Walker and Etienne before him, which I just don't understand.
Don't like
I
ETN.
yeah, I think if Deshaun Watson comes back to form, if he's the Houston Texan, Deshaun Watson that we saw like tear up the league, that offense could be outrageous, right? And it could lead to even more touchdown opportunities than he had. And he ended up with 12 touchdowns on the ground last year, and he didn't have any in the air, or maybe one on the air, one
He did
reception.
have one. He did have
Yeah,
one. I looked it
yep,
up before. Yep.
yep. So I think with Kareem Hunt, there's obviously some questions there. If he doesn't come back, that leaves some of that receiving opportunity to Chubb. That could be a great opportunity for him to grow there. And the only concern I really had was that he's aging, right? He's 28, so some of that durability there starts to
He's
come
20.
into question.
He's 27.
27. I think he's turning 28 maybe before the season starts or something.
Okay. Well,
That's what I
yeah,
got.
he's 27 right now because I looked it up.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. And just to add something a little bit to like Nick Chubb, because like I said, he's coming up very soon for me as well. I love him. I just recently drafted him in our mock draft, and I'm kind of targeting him in my redraft coming up. But he's never averaged less than 5 yards a carry in his career.
Yeah.
He's probably the best pure runner in the NFL. And there's really no other viable threat in the backfield behind him to take away touches. So it's like you said, Kareem Hunt is gone. So maybe he does get a little bit more of that uptick in the pass catching area, because really the only other best known guy who's really not even that known is Jerome Ford, who I think
Yeah.
is really just a handcuff at best. So, and like you said, even with Watson coming back, you hope, I don't really like to root for Watson, but like if he comes back to form, man, that's going to open up so many running lanes for Nick Chubb, because last time we saw Watson, like for real with the Texans, he was elite. So like Chubb could go and burst through for another 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns and finish as RB6 again, which is what he finished last season. So I do love Nick Chubb. I think he's a great player. And I think I would definitely take him over Derrick Henry now, but over the last few years, it was kind of Derrick Henry for me. But yeah, Nick Chubb's a great player, man. So before we go into my number 4, we do need to go ahead and take a quick break, and then we will be right back. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're going to have that picture everywhere, or the button will be down there. You're not going to see it though. So go ahead, like and subscribe, comment, let us know what you think about those first 4, and stop pointing everywhere, Ben. But let us know what you
I'm
think about this.
confusing him.
You're throwing me off. But yeah, let us, like I said, let us know what you think about those first 4 in the comments, and we will be right back, guys. Alrighty, welcome back. We are back from the break, and we are gonna jump right back in. Yeah, shut up, Ben.
I didn't even say anything.
You're getting too excited. I saw that face.
I'm ready to go.
You're not here, so I have to be an asshole to somebody. It's just a second nature. So you got to get used to that. But I'm just kidding. So we're gonna go into my number 4 actually, because I forgot you went last time. So my number 4 is actually a little controversial. Struggle with that word sometimes. Controversial. And it is Tony Pollard. Yeah, Mr. Pollard. So this is a guy that finished as RB8 last season, and he didn't even really take over until week 6 as like a full-time guy. Like, is that where you are viewing him as like the starter? And this also is also conditionally like kind of with Saquon, but again, you have to kind of think about this stuff in the future whenever you're making rankings. So I am considering this, and I'm going to keep him at 4. But unless they bring in somebody like Dalvin Cook, then that's probably not going to change, because even if they bring in Zeke, I don't think he makes that big of a difference in terms of taking touches away. So this is going to be his first full year as a starter, though, where both Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer have been extremely vocal about wanting to run the ball more and run it a lot more, and at least utilizing their running backs in very different ways. So they've talked about slowing the clock down, which we talked about in our last one, our little segment where we were making fun of the Cowboys for firing what you call it, I'm blanking on his name now, Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore.
Yes, thank you. And he definitely one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL. And he was saying that, when you're a young offensive coordinator or you're a young guy, you want to prove yourself. You're looking like, yeah, let's get points on the board after this, after that, after that. And we're like, so you're getting mad at him for doing his job too well? So I don't really understand.
You put too many points on the board.
Yeah.
Like,
so,
what are you doing?
okay, this is why I feel sorry for Cowboy fans sometimes, but I mean, you guys are very loyal and they're kind of everywhere. It's like a rat, you don't know it until you see it, and they just jump out at you and steal your cheese. So I don't really know where that analogy was going, but I do really love Tony Pollard. And this could be also recency bias because I had him last year and he helped win me a championship, or at least like get me to the championship. But this is one of the most explosive like playmakers at the running back position in the NFL. Saquon Barkley even recently gave him that praise on the Richard Sherman podcast. So this is a guy that I'm very confident in. And I think RB4 may be a little rich for some people, but I'm very confident, at least as of right now, where they have literally no one but Ronald Jones and Deuce Vaughn behind him. Yes, who else are they going to give the fucking ball to? So Tony Pollard's going to get a ton of catches. He is a great pass catcher, by the way. He hasn't necessarily been used a ton as the pass catching role because he obviously had Zeke, and Zeke was also a very capable pass catcher. But now he's the guy. So I think 70 catches are totally in the realm of possibility for Tony Pollard, maybe even more. And then I think also he could run for over 1,000 yards, which he did even last year. So I think he could get over that, maybe go for about 1,100 to 1,200. He also had 9 rushing touchdowns. And like I said, hasn't really been used heavily as a pass catcher, but still had 39 catches and 371 yards with 3 receiving touchdowns. So this is an explosive play waiting to happen in Tony Pollard. So I'm very excited to see what he will do next year. And again, this is probably more his ceiling, but I'm willing to bet that I think he will reach that even if they bring in Zeke or somebody like that. Because I'm betting on the talent, and also just exactly what the coaches have said, come out and said what they want to do. And I don't think it's just coach speak either. I think this is exactly something the Cowboys would do. They also franchise tag them too. So that's something you have to think about, where we saw that with Josh Jacobs last year, and I'm not saying he's going to rush for 1,600 yards, but whenever you have these guys on a franchise tag, they tend to not care how many touches they give them per year or per game. I mean, so I think he's going to get a ton of touches at least. So that's going to help him. And I think he's going to get just enough rushing ability to where maybe he can be an Austin Eckler type player. So like I said, I even compared him whenever I ranked Austin Eckler at number 3. So, yeah, I mean, what do you have anything you want to say before I move on to number 5?
Yeah, I think you're way too high on
Really?
Pollard here.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually had him outside of my top 10 at number 11. So not too far out. You talked about his.
To be fair, I had Josh Jacobs outside of my top 10. So
yeah, there we go. We swapped players, right?
Yeah.
So you talk about his pass catching abilities. Yeah, I think he's great out of the backfield. 70 catches, you're talking about almost doubling, what he had last year. Do I think that's possible with Zeke gone, yeah, but I have a hunch that Zeke is going to end up back there. If he doesn't end up signing somewhere else, I think they end up signing Zeke on some, minimum wage, deal for the next year just to run him into the ground as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you talked about he had over 1,000 yards rushing still, even with Zeke there, which is great. So I did want to keep him right around that, top 10, pick, but I put him at 11 on my list. So that's where I was with him.
Yeah. No, I mean that's to be fair. You're entitled to your wrong opinion. So
Wrong.
I do really believe in Tony Pollard. And like I said, I do also think this is more his ceiling than his like probable actual ranking, know where you should take him. Because when it comes to the drafting, am I taking Nick Chubb? Am I taking Tony Pollard ahead of Nick Chubb? Probably not, because Nick Chubb's a much safer option. Obviously, he's going to get the touches, but I think Tony Pollard is a much more exciting player. He's younger. And again, even with Zeke there, I think 70 catches is totally in the realm of possibility because we've seen it done before. We saw Leonard Fournette not being used as a pass catcher whatsoever. And then, like, I don't remember exactly what it is. I could try to look it up real quick, but it was like year 2 or year 3 where he broke out for like 70 catches. So let me see with the Jaguars. So let me see. I'm pulling it up right now on Sleeper. He had year 1, he only had 36. He had 22 in year 2. So really was not used as a pass catcher at all in year 2 in the first 2 years. But then he exploded with 76, 66, 69, 73. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for someone to do that. And I do think he is a much better pure pass catcher than Leonard Fournette. So I think that is 100% more realistic for someone like him to do it and sustain it when actually given that responsibility.
So you're going 70. I'm going to go 59. 59 or under.
Okay, let's make a board bet.
We can do a gentleman's bet on that one.
Yeah, a gentleman's bet. Yeah, we don't have to put money on it like me and Alex, but gentleman's bet. You say under 60, I say over 60.
There you go.
Put it on the board.
On the board.
All right. So going on to number 5, you already mentioned my number 5, and I'm not going to talk much about him because I kind of went on a little bit about him already too, is Nick Chubb. I think he's an elite running back, and I think the only reason he's not in my top 4 is because he is, as you can tell, all my other top 4 pass catchers. So, but he is the best pure running back in the NFL, which is why he is number 5 for me. But I think you want obviously those pass catchers, which is why I have 4 of them ahead of him. But what is your number 5 running back in redraft?
Yeah, I've got Saquon, right? I think this
disrespectful.
I think it's a team that's surrounding Daniel Jones with trying to surround him with a ton of weapons, right? And looking at what they can do. But I think Saquon's got to be the focus there, right? And this is again taking contract issues and stuff out of the equation. He had over 50 receptions last year, and I think that could increase. With the addition of Paris Campbell, you got Wyatt that they drafted, you have Darren Waller, and a healthy Wan'Dale Robinson. I think that will take the defense away from focusing so much on Saquon out of the backfield, and that'll give him a little bit of breathing room. He had just over like 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. He didn't have any receiving touchdowns last year, and I think that can improve it as well. But that's where I have him sitting at number 5 here. I don't see him as a bell cow anymore. I do think he should still be the focal point of the offense, but I don't see him being the 3 out of 4 touches.
Right. Well, like I said, I mean, I'm not going to go much into Saquon because you went into him and I already did. He was my RB1, but again, I think him and CMC are just different. I think there are a few running backs in the NFL in today's NFL that should be bell cows and should be paid like accordingly. And it's CMC is one of them, and he is the other. He may not have had any receiving touchdowns last year, but he still had I think it was like 10 rushing touchdowns, you
10.
know. So he's gonna get touchdowns regardless. He is a playmaker. He is gonna find his way to that end zone. So let's go on to number 6. So who is your number 6 running back in redraft settings?
Yeah, my number 6 guy is someone that I don't really like in our dynasty league, obviously, but in redraft, Derrick Henry. I think Tennessee Titans are going to run this guy into the ground until his knees are gone. He's not going to be around much longer, right? And they know that. And who knows if he's even going to be on the Titans come the trade deadline. That's something that you mentioned in our last podcast. But here at number 6, I think volume equals points, right? The increase in productivity in the offense with DeAndre Hopkins coming there, I think that'll help a little bit. But I still think it's one of the weaker offenses in the league with Tannehill behind the helm there. But it won't surprise me if we end up seeing Will Levis there at the end.
Yeah. He's King Henry, King Henry. He is a freak of nature. He's not my RB6, but he is close to it. Again, we're very close on a lot of these rankings, so I'm sure you may be able to guess what he is. But I mean, there's not much you can say about him, man. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's 29 years old. He's run for I think he's run for 2,000 yards twice, right? Hasn't he? Do you know for sure? Or I think he's came close one year, but that was the year he got hurt. Let me see if I can pull it up on Sleeper real quick. But let's see. Yeah, so he's run for 2,000 yards once, but that 900-yard season, that was like 7 games in. So he was definitely on pace for 2,000 yards again. He's run for
definitely.
he's run over for 1,500 yards twice. He's just a freak of nature, man. Like I said, he's King Henry. He was RB4 in 2022. There's not much that you can really say about him. I do think the fact that he sat those first couple years is kind of the reason I think he is going to be able to sustain that top 5 elite running back status, maybe for 1 to 2 more years. But after that, I do agree. I think it's going to be a fall off, and we may be seeing the end of him. And I actually think it was Alex, just to give credit to him, that said like the trade thing on the podcast last week about King Henry. Excuse me, I had a cough, but I ate a lot of food before the podcast, but yeah, so I do want to give credit to him for that, but also they are already bringing in the future, so that's also pretty clear with Tajay Spears. Now, Tajay Spears has those ACL injuries, so you don't really know for sure what his long-term value is, but this is a guy that has a lot of juice. He was a Senior Bowl favorite. He's been a favorite of this podcast from the beginning, specifically of mine when I watched him at the Senior Bowl. So I do love Tajay. And just to get back to King Henry, I don't think Tajay's gonna, take his job whatsoever. That's not what I'm saying. He's, King Henry's never had less than 10 touchdowns in a year, but I do think the end is coming. And again, I agree with what you said too, that they're just gonna run him into the ground until the tires fall off. But my RB6 though, and honestly, the only reason he's not in my top 5 is because he's never even stepped on the field yet, is Bijan Robinson, baby. You cue the fantasy footballers music theme song where it's the Bijan minute. Yeah. I thought that was hilarious. But no, I mean, Bijan's incredible, man. The only reason he's not in my top 5 is just because I couldn't justify putting him above people that are already proven. But this is the most valuable running back prospect that we've seen in fantasy since Saquon Barkley, and he's received comparisons to Saquon and Edgerrin James. Like, he is going to be an incredible player. I think was incredible at Texas, and he was also taken number 8 overall, which is kind of crazy when you think about this too, that he's also the number 1 paid running back in the NFL already. He's going to be making $13 million a year. So kudos to him. He's going to be I bet you better save that money, boo boo. Like, save that fucking money because you are not getting paid by your next contract as a running back.
Yeah. When you
So
turn 24, that's it.
exactly,
Like, you're
like,
done.
you know, well, 25 because he's definitely going to get franchise tag probably like once or twice.
Once or
So
twice, yeah.
so, dude, like, but Bijan is a special player, man. He's, like I said, he's the highest paid running back in the NFL, but also he's on a team with a quarterback that is pretty shit. And Desmond Ritter, you
Yeah.
know, I'm a Saints
100.
fan. Yeah, I'm a Saints fan, so I don't really care about the Falcon fans' feelings. But I mean, y'all's quarterback is shit, and even Taylor Heineke isn't really anything to brag about. So they're going to be running the hell out of that ball, and also the head coach is known for building his offense around a superstar running back in Arthur Smith, being the offensive coordinator for Tennessee. So where he had Derrick Henry and was also the offensive coordinator during that 2,000-yard season. So I've said this on past episodes where I believe that if we've ever going to see someone break the record for most touches in a season again, I think it could be Bijan. Like, I really do. They're going to run the fuck out of that ball, and I don't really think they're going to pass it that much. And they may win, actually. And it's kind of really worries me as a Saints fan that they're going to end up with Caleb Williams or Drake May next year. And then the Bucks are going to suck as well. And then as a Saints fan, I'm going to have to deal with Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, and or Drake May in the same fucking division. So it sucks, but kudos to Bijan. He is going to be a special player, and I have him in a couple leagues as well. And and also just as last thing I'm going to say about him, he's number 6 overall right now, and I don't have him in my top 5. But if you look at ESPN and you do a couple mock drafts there, he's already going in like the top 5, sometimes in the back end of the first round. So this is a guy that has more hype than we've seen, and we've seen rookie running backs finish in the top 5 plenty of times. Ergo Zeke Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Todd Gurley, those guys like that. So to go ahead and move on, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if you look at Sleeper, and I don't know how they do their calculations or whatever, but if you look at the average draft pick, Bijan is like the ADP 11 when it comes to running backs.
Yeah.
So I just don't, I don't know how the calculations are working, but ADP 11 is pretty high for a guy that, like you said, hasn't stepped foot on the field yet.
Yeah. But again, we've seen guys, rookie running backs specifically, that have been drafted as highly as he has, that have produced right out the gate like that. Zeke Elliott, Todd Gurley, Saquon Barkley, even Leonard Fournette year 1. He wasn't phenomenal, but I'm pretty sure he was still top 15, so that's something to consider. But for me, like I said, to go on to my number 7 was actually your number 6 in Derrick Henry. So I don't need to go in much about him. We both talked about him a little bit more. So who is your number 8 running back for redraft?
Well, we skipped my number 7, but I think we're good because
I thought you said number 7.
No. My actual number 7 is also Bijan, right? So right there with you, I think right around the same place. I think Arthur Smith and Dave Ragone are going to stick to that run game and hand the rock off as much as they can and take the heat off of Desmond Ritter. I looked at, everyone thinking that the Atlanta Falcons offense was horrible last year. And I remember the game against the Saints, the first game against the Saints, and we were down 23-10 after the third quarter. And I was like, wow, the Falcons have like found a team and they got Marcus Mariota and he's running all over us, and they got a couple wide receivers and Kyle Pitts, and like, okay, this is a true offense here. Come to find out, like, that kind of faltered, mid-season or so, but and we ended up coming back and winning that game, though. Who that? But I think if Desmond Ritter can take control of that offense, and they continue to pound that rock like they want to, and Bijan is the star that people think that he's going to be, I think that's a going to be a pretty potent offense there with Desmond Ridder, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. They're moving Cordarrelle Patterson back out the wide receiver, right? So he's no longer going to be taking carries. You got Tyler Algier back there as the backup to Bijan. So we'll see how things work out there. I think they have some things to work out on defense as far as that team goes overall. But the offense, they got some playmakers there, right? So
fuck the Falcons.
fuck the Falcons.
So who's your running back 8?
Mine running back 8. Let's go. This guy actually finished RB 33 in our league last year.
Wow, we're like very close on a lot of these. Okay, continue.
Yeah. All right, JT, Jonathan Taylor. There you go. All right, so I'll tell you, I like Jonathan Taylor. I think he's a hell of a running back. You know, coming out of Wisconsin. You know, I think he hit the ground running there in Indianapolis, has been a top 5 or 6 running back the first couple of years. Last year dealt with a couple injuries, left him with only 11 games played. So obviously that skewed his stats as far as fantasy goes. But they only drafted Evan Hull out of Northwestern, and then they released 2 of their running backs, Darrington Evans and Aaron Shamklin or something like that.
No idea.
No one even knows how to say his damn name, so he's not relevant. So that should tell you like how they feel about Jonathan Taylor and his recovery from his injuries. Like I think they're ready to go with him, you know, full speed this coming season. My concern is Anthony Richardson, and I think you hit the nail on the head last podcast when you said Jalen Hurts 2.0, right? I think when they get down into the red zone, he's not going to be confident in his passing game, which we already know he's got accuracy issues, and I think he's going to end up stealing a lot of touches from JT or whoever the running back is, you know, in those situations. And you're going to see a bunch of red zone touchdowns for Anthony Richardson. And that's the only reason why I have him, you know, past my top 5. I think if we were still looking at, you know, Matt Ryan, you know, sucking it up there, even though that it was still a shitty offense, I think they still leaned on Jonathan Taylor a little more. I think I would put Jonathan Taylor up there in my top 5. But right now with Anthony Richardson and those unknowns, and with him being a mobile quarterback, and we all know that mobile quarterbacks are known to just, you know, get scared, right, in the huddle, and just end up taking the rock themselves once they see the reads or whatever. I can't take him in my top 5.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like, I love JT. I think he's a great player. He obviously ran for 2,000 yards, like not last season, but the year before that. So he clearly has the talent. And we are very close on a lot of these. So I pretty much, I guess I might have an idea who your number 9 is, but I'll stay surprised. But yeah, I mean, JT is my number 9 ranked running back. So one spot away again. He's only 24 years old. He started off hot, RB2, and then was just plagued with injuries ever since. He had one RB1 finished in week 10, but other than that, there's nothing else that I really need to say. You hit the nail on the dot, you know, with everything that you mentioned, and even the Anthony Richardson stuff and how that's a big worry for me. JT in redraft, though, I still think he'll get the rushing usage and, you know, enough of it to be able to sustain that RB1 value. It's dynasty where I really worry about him, because you also have to consider, like, obviously the state of the running back market, like we've talked about so much this time throughout this podcast. Is he going to get paid? I don't think he will, because I mean, they didn't pay you have Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. They didn't pay Miles Sanders. They're going to look to build that offensive line and build the weapons around him, and they're going to follow that exact same model. So I just don't know about JT's long-term value. And Alex hates hearing that because he loves JT, but
Yeah, because he's been trying to trade him to me like every day.
he tried to trade me for Bajan like almost every other day too. I think he's finally starting to give up, but I do love JT. I think he's a very talented player. But my number 8, though, to kind of move on, since you said my number 9 already, and then you can go on to your number 9. But my number 8 is Ramondre Stevenson. So this is where I was saying this is kind of funny where because you're in that group text where me and Alex had that bet on who had a better season, Ramondre Stevenson or Ken Walker. And Ramondre Stevenson obviously came out at my number 8, and spoiler alert, Ken Walker came out at my number 10. So I kind of just kind of bet against myself to lose, but I'm going to bet on Ken Walker, being a Seahawks fan, that he'll prove me wrong. But to kind of talk about Stevenson real quick is just, obviously you had Leonard Fournette visiting, which is something that you have to consider. But even if Leonard Fournette signs there, I still think Stevenson is an extremely talented player. He's a 4th-round pick, and I think they want to get the most out of that because the Patriots aren't going to re-sign him. That's just not what they do. I don't honestly think they've ever re-signed somebody since like maybe Corey Dillon, which is coincidentally the last guy they treated like a true workhorse running back in like the early 2000s. Like some of you guys watching this may not have even been able to like really comprehend football in the early 2000s. I know I wasn't. Shit.
They don't even know who Corey Dillon is.
Probably not. Shit, when in the early 2000s, I was like 5 years old. So like that just shows you right there what the Patriots are about and why I stay away from Ramondre in Dynasty. But in redraft, I think he's actually a really good bet. And I think he's kind of a sleeper too, because he's not going very highly in most drafts. Like I said, he was RB7 last year. Well, actually, I don't think I said he was RB7 last year. He didn't get as much like receiving yards as you would like to see, but he got the catches. And this kind of goes to just how bad the offense really was, because it was mostly just a lot of dump offs. But he had 69 catches for 421 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Now, obviously, that's because they had Matt Patricia as the OC last year, which is just a very idiotic move by Bill Belichick. I don't know why he did that. You have a defensive coordinator running your offense. Come on, that's like the Colts bringing in what's his face, the analyst that I'm blanking on his name right now, and expecting him to succeed, but then he comes in and shits the bed. Jeff Saturday, there we go. Like, so it's just not going to work. But I do think now that they have Bill O'Brien, he's an actual offensive mind and a very good one at that. And I think Ramondre Stevenson is a great pass catcher. So. And I do think he will be able to hopefully get those yards up, even if Lenny does come in. But Lenny is a very capable pass catcher as well, like I said. So that's something that you have to think about. But I am willing to take that bet at Ramondre hitting that top 10 upside. And it's not going to make me feel good if I draft him. I promise you that. But I think he is going to be one of those players that you won't feel good drafting him, because you know that obviously, especially if Lenny is there. Because it being the Patriots, anything could happen. He could get benched 1 week and never see the fucking field again. We've seen that with the Patriots so many times, frustratingly. But Stevenson is a very talented player, and I do think he will be able to, at least without the rest of his time with the Patriots, be a very top 10 RB1-ish type player throughout fantasy. So to go on, who is your number 9 so we can get out of here before so we don't have to.
Who's the other running back that the Patriots brought in?
No one. They have Kevin. Are you talking about for a visit?
For a visit.
I don't know if they
you guys earlier about it.
I don't think they actually brought him in. Oh, was it Kareem Hunt? Maybe.
No. She's.
We'll have to talk about. Yeah, we don't have time to talk about that again.
I can't remember who it was, but there was another running back that they brought in. So it kind of made me question, like, if they're bringing in, and it was a named guy that you would be like, oh wow, they brought him in too.
Well, again, so it starts to make Patriots. It's the Patriots.
It starts to make me question, like, Yeah,
So
what are they doing there?
that's why I was saying you can't trust him in Dynasty, but redraft, I do think he's worth the the bet at least. At least even if it's Leonard Fournette or like Zeke Elliott or something like that, you know.
Even
But
within the top 10.
even within the top 10, I do. Yes. I think he's an RB. I think if he's not top 10, he floats around that RB1 territory. So
Yeah.
but we don't have that much time left, or we're gonna have to take another break. So let's go through your 9 and 10 already, because I kind of spoiled my 10 already being Ken Walker.
All right. Well, my number 9 might be a bit of a jump here, and it's Najee Harris.
Oh, I
I think.
hate that. I hate it. Oh,
Oh, come on.
oh. He's like probably my RB15. Go ahead.
RB15. Well, let's talk about my number 17, which is Stevenson. Let's talk about it.
Oh,
Blah, blah, blah.
wow. Okay. All right. Go
Way
ahead though.
down the list.
Go ahead though.
Yeah. No, I think last year injuries caught up with him a little bit. He still ended up RB14 in our league. And he rushed for just over 1,000 yards, had 7 touchdowns on the ground, 41 receptions, 3 receptions, 3 receiving touchdowns. I think that offense gets a lot better than it was last year, second year under Pickett. Under center. So
I don't like Pickett. That's my issue.
I don't think he's the quarterback of the future for them. I think he gets a lot better than he was last year, though. I think he was rushed into the starting job there, and I think having a season under, or an off season under his belt, is going to do a lot of value for him.
Okay. So I mean, I don't really want to get into it because I don't hate Najee. I just think he's good. I think he's more in that Josh Jacobs territory for me, where he's good. I don't want him in my top 10. I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole in my top 10 now.
Yeah.
So who is your number? Well, we don't have that much time left. So who is your number 10 running back? But so we can still have a little bit time to close out.
Okay. Number 10, I've got someone who's probably.
Wait, hold on. My bad. Najee was your number 9, right?
Najee was my 9. Did you
Okay.
go with your 9 yet?
Yeah. So, like I said, mine was JT because you said
Okay.
JT. That's why I'm not going into it as much. But also, my Ken Walker was number 10. Spoiled that already. So that's why. Go ahead with your
fucking Seahawks fans.
Oh, shut
always
the fuck up.
Daydreaming.
Shut the fuck up. Who's your number 10?
My number 10, I went with Cam Akers.
Ew.
Oh, come on. Come on now.
That's
Let's talk
disgusting.
about it. So he had 105 points through the last 6 weeks of the season. That's 17 and a half points a week, right? I think that offense gets a lot better with Matt Stafford healthy, and then running that through him and Cooper Kupp, who's also going to be healthy, hopefully, right? Like we're thinking that everyone's healthy. This is, everyone's good to go 100% through this season as we're drafting these guys, right? So, no broken back for Matt Stafford here. They didn't draft anyone of concern, to take carries away from Cam Akers, right? And
that's because Cam Akers isn't a concern.
Well, I'll tell you, I have him in our league, and people have been hesitant to take him for even like a later round pick, but I have Kyron Williams on our team, or on my team, and he's a running back out of Notre Dame, and I think he's being very undervalued. He's getting a lot of looks in OTAs. I don't think that's going to equivalent to like carries or anything in the regular season, though. I think that's going to, like, the number 1 running back there is Cam Akers, right? And then unless he gets hurt or is unable to play, he's the guy that's getting the rock out of the backfield, whether it's on the ground or in the air. That's the guy.
Yeah, well, as you can see from my visible disgust, I completely
I
disagree with you.
Yeah,
I mean, this is just a guy who was almost cut last year and traded, so I couldn't fathom placing him at my RB10. But we can leave it at that. You again, I've said this, you're entitled to your own wrong opinion.
Well,
But
I'll tell you my one big concern with Cam Akers is the signing of Sony Michel. Right, we saw him steal a ton of touchdowns there. Well, maybe not a ton, but like a ton for New England, I guess. Touchdowns there on the goal line. So I could see them using him in that type of situation again. But other than that, I think Cam Akers is the man, and he's
well,
going to end up being a top
we're
10 running back.
we're gonna have to wrap it up there. I mean, that's a disgusting way to end it. I don't like it, but unfortunately, you're gonna have to get that one. That's just ew. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I can't believe you have to listen to him saying Cam Akers is a top 10 running back, but I'm not gonna be too mean to you. Where you're all entitled to your wrong opinion, but again, make sure you guys make fun of Ben in the comments for that, because that's a terrible take. I love you, Ben, but that's a terrible take.
Hey, at the end of the season, we're going to post our PPR leagues, League of Legends, right? That's the name of it. We're going to post the running back records
Well,
for.
we'll come back to this. But we only have less than a minute. Let's close it out on a good note and not have you say anything else about Cam Akers being a top 10 running back. That won't happen. That's just a fantasy of yours. That God, you're a sicko, you weird person. People have some sick interest, and you're one of them. Cam Akers is a top 10 running back, please. I didn't get much into Ken Walker, but you guys know I'm a Seahawks fan, so I've talked plenty about him. But we will have another episode coming out soon, Ben. If you're able to do it, we'll do a RB 11 through 20, because I know you already have yours set up. I didn't do mine yet, but we'll get that episode out to you guys soon.
Yeah, pretty much everyone you put in your 1 through 10 is in my 11 through 20.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Don't make me mute you. You Cam Akers lover. But again, make sure you guys like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.
Happy birthday, Alex.
Fuck you, Alex. I love you.